Oh my days. That is a massive, massive carp. Hang on, that's not even off the mat.
Well, like with any draw, someone's got to come first, someone's got to come last. Spooner?
In this masterclass, we're going to show you how to get the best out of your swim, no matter what number you pull out of the hat. That feeling will never, ever get old.
They're the ones you'll want.
But the important thing here is to not panic.
We've been consistent, we've kept the bait going in, and now we are going to get our reward.
That is a big carp. Come and have a look.
Coming out first in the draw puts me in a fantastic position, but having first choice is not as easy as it seems. With 15 swims on the lake, I need to take all the information in from the bailiffs on the walk around, along with the research I'd done before leaving home, to put myself in a swim that will allow me to work and build up a big hit of fish.
For myself, it's last place or number 12 here at the Road Lake. My choice is totally at the mercy of the other anglers, so I like to get a clear idea of my favourite swims in order from 1 through to 12. And you never know, one of the better swims might just get overlooked. If you only get one big trip a year, then coming to somewhere like this gives you the very best chance of ensuring you get yourself a bite. The Road Lake at Gigantica is the perfect lake if you're looking to visit France for the first time. Now, when you come to France, it's important to be prepared for a lake draw, and I'm going to show you exactly how you can make the most of the swim so you still leave with a nice big carp.
Now, I've been here several times before, and I know at big hits of fish, I'm more than capable. So I'll be working the swim day and night to get the very best out of my session. I know everyone's different, but that's how I like to enjoy my holiday.
With swims picked, the first thing to do on any water is to get the leading rod out and to get to know my swim a bit better. For this, all I need is a 4-ounce probe lead looped directly onto my marker braid. Now, when you pull number 12 out of the bag, it's easy, or it could be easy, to let your head go down, but never let that happen. You never know where people are going to pick. I've ended up with my first swim. It's a swim known as the Shingles, and it would probably be in my top 3 or 4, you know, given the choice of any swim on the lake. So I'm really pleased to be starting here. I know for a fact that fish hold up in this open bowl area. I'm going to have a lead around. I want to find a spot that not only am I happy to start fishing straight away, but I want to keep the bait going in all week with the belief that the fish will keep visiting that zone. Now, the bailiffs do a really in-depth walk around on every single swim before you know where you're going to be. They then come back round again later just to give you their advice. They live on sites, they know the areas that fish get caught from regularly. I know an area that they've recommended to me, so that's where I'm going to be aiming for to start with. Now, I've got a second option as well, because when you come out last in the draw at the Road Lake, they let you have 2 choices of swims. It's not just you come out number 12, there's only 1 swim to choose from. It actually still gives you a few options. So here's my starting point. And then secondary, I've got a swim called Basilias, which you can see over in the corner there. You sort of fish long to this margin. So it's perfect, really. Not only can I feel like I'm on fish here, but if I start to see fish showing over there where I'm going to put some bait in, I'll know exactly when I need to move. First things first, let's have that lead about.
Now, like any lake, whether you're back home in England or abroad in France, each lake has their sort of like natural holding area for the carp. And I believe this week is going to be Turtle's Corner. It looks absolutely perfect for it. The wind is trickled in. You've got a no fishing bank and a lot of open water. And this is probably the reason why this swim is really consistent throughout the year with a lot of anglers fishing it. It's a natural area they like to hold. You know, you get holding areas and you get passing areas. And you know, coming out first in the draw, I want to get myself in a holding area. And hopefully I have done that with Turtle's Corner. Now on the walk round, the bailiffs mentioned a few spots in Turtle's Corner, one of them being at 21 wraps. Now it's really important. The bailiffs here at Gigantica, they are very much in tune with the lake. It's like their back garden, they know it extremely well. But whatever wraps they give you, whatever marks they give you, it's important to sort of take their marks in, but use them as a real rough guide. You know, they've said 21 wraps, don't just take 21 wraps as granted and just fish out there and then maybe not be on that exact spot that I need to be on. So by wrapping up at 22, then exploring back to 21, I can then hit the money spot, wherever that be. So yeah, I've got a lot to do now. I've got to get set up, I've got to find some spots, get some bait in, and really make the most of coming out first in the draw. When finding a spot, here's a few things I always do at the start of a session. A bare probe lead will find me everything that I need to know within my swim. So I'm just using the Basix braid all the way through. And with the Basix braid, you don't actually need a leader. And this stuff is absolutely perfect. And fishing up to about sort of 25 to 28 wraps, it will get you out there every single time. At the end of the Basix braid, I've got a large loop and a small loop. This will help me change from a bare probe lead to a marker float. When I need to spot, I can then whack a spot in there with these as well. Now, what am I actually looking for when I'm looking for a spot for the very first time on a new lake or a new venue? I tend to go with the opposite of the abundance out there. Now, if I have a few casts, it's all very smooth and very silty, I will do my hardest, you know, to find the hardest area amongst that silt, whether it be a little gravelly area or a little clay area, and vice versa. You know, if it's all gravel out there, I may look for, you know, a slightly siltier area, but getting leads to where they are is the key, you know. Just because I might find a little gravel hump at 10 wraps and they're all showing at 25 wraps, that's probably not the best area. So I want to get as close to the fish as possible, but still give them a little bit of room. You know, if you start crashing leads straight into the nest of where they're living, you're not going to get much longevity out of that. So give them a little bit of room, they will stick around longer and you'll catch fish, hopefully, every single day. Now, once I'm happy with my spots, it may take 7 or 8 casts, I'm then going to pop on a little marker float, and that's to get me the depths, and that's really, really important. I need to know the depth so then I can find out how much shorter I can clip up my spod rod in relation to my fishing rods. So in this situation here, I found the spot at 14 foot. Now, the simple rule of thumb that I use is for every 3 foot of water that I'm fishing in, I will drop my spod rod 1 foot shorter. So 3 foot, 6, 9, 12, 15. So I'm going to drop my spod rod 5 foot shorter than my fishing rods. That will guarantee me that I'll be fishing over my bait every single time. And like I said, these are the things you want to be doing on the Saturday. It's no good Sunday, and especially not Monday. Even if you don't fish on the Saturday, get these things done, because trust me, it will set you up perfectly for the rest of the week.
As the old saying goes, there's plenty of ways to skin a cat, and I have a slightly different way of making sure that my bait and rigs are all exactly where I want them.
Now, I'll be honest, I don't actually use a marker float that much in my fishing anymore. I tend to find the drop and sort of bait accordingly. But when I'm sitting somewhere for a week, I want to know that I'm being as accurate as possible. So by putting a marker float on, I'm wrapped up to 18 wraps, hit the clip nicely, pop the float up, and then I can actually cast my spom at it so that I know that for the duration of the trip, I'm baiting up bang on top of my rigs, because trust me, being as accurate as you can will always lead to more bites.
With the spots found, it was now time to get some bait on them. It's sometimes hard to know exactly how much to put in on the first day, as you don't know how much the previous angler has used. Rob and I both find that 20 to 30 spoms is always a good place to start, and when it comes to the mix itself, it's the same for both of us. We start with a mixture of link boilies in 15 and 18 mil, which we put through the cutter a few times, giving us lots of different shapes and sizes. Added to that, we use the hemp and maize that's prepared freshly here on site, as this is something all the fish see on a regular basis. And that's all finished off with a good helping of the mainline Smart Liquid, which is a fatty food source that moves up and down the water column, carrying bits of food with it, which in turn helps bring the fish down to the spot. With all the different size particles down there, it should keep them rooting around for hours, which is more than long enough to hopefully get a few bites.
During this session, I'm going to be using as much as the Basix range as possible. Now on my reels, I've got the 15-pound Basix mono, which is in 0.40. I've then got the Basix Action Pack, which gives you the tubing. I'm using about 12 inches of it. I've got a tail rubber, a leg clip, and in that leg clip, I've got a size 8 quick change swivel. Now the rig itself is a very, very simple rig. It's a little slip D rig using the 18-pound Basix coated braid. I've got a size 4 Basix hook in barbless. Now my hook bait is a combination of a quad hook bait, a bottom bait that's been soaked in the spicy squid goo for about a week now. And to top it off and give it a little bit of buoyancy but not too much, I've got a little bit of pop-up IB corn. And that's all balanced off, like I say, on one of our little micro ring swivels. Now it's a very simple, quick change rig, but one I'm very confident in and one I'm very happy that's going to catch me plenty of carp during this session. So let's get this rod out there and hope for the best.
Now, without doubt, the first day of your trip is when you're at your most tired. You've had very little sleep, you've normally done a long drive to get to the lake. By the time you've then done the draw and get into the swim, you could almost be forgiven for just chucking the bed chair up, flicking some rods out and getting some much needed shut-eye. But don't do that. Put the hard work in. Find the spot that you're going to concentrate on for the duration of your trip. Spend a bit of time finding exactly where you want to present your hook baits, get the bait out, and it will certainly put you in much better stead for the rest of the trip. I am just about ready to hit the hay now, but I've got 3 rods on the spot. They're well baited. I've also been down to my secondary option. I've put some bait in there as well, so should it not work in this swim, I've already got something else to fall back on. I've seen a couple of carp show over my spot already, so I'm hoping we can get off to an absolute flyer.
Well, good morning. We've got our first Road Lake carp on. Very, very quiet and cold night as well last night. It probably got down to about 3 degrees. Whether that made a difference to not a lot coming out, I couldn't tell you, but I spoke to the bailiff last night when he dropped in around. He did mention that last week, the majority of the bites come during the daylight hours, and yeah, the mist has cleared this morning. I did put a further 2 or 3 spoms out. It's not been long, and the left down rod is yeah, bolted off, and I'll tell you what, there's nothing better than playing one of these big old French carp. It's you never know what's going to pop up here. It could be a big old 30 pounder, it could be a 60 pounder, but I'm going to concentrate. Yes. Come on, baby. Nice little scaly one. See the old hook bait there? Go on, Gil. We are off the mark. What a buzz. I tell you what, that first one is so, so important. You know, you get the first one in the net, you know you've got things right, you know you've got the bait application right, the rigs are working, and importantly the spot is also very, very good. So this one here, maybe only a small one, but it means the world. And here he is, the first one, and this one came to spomming this morning. About half an hour ago, I introduced 2 or 3 spoms, and this one came very quickly afterwards. So I'm going to keep this theme up now. Every half an hour, 2 or 3 spoms, keep the bait going in, and hopefully keep these carp coming to the net.
I've seen out that first light period, which historically it's a good time anywhere you go, but this swim has been doing a few at that time. I've seen through that period, nothing's happened, so I'm just refreshing all the hook baits. I'm going to put a little bit more bait out, but the important thing here is to not panic. The first night on any commercial lake that you come to in France, the fish are under extra pressure because there's 12 anglers around the lake. They're baiting for that first afternoon, they're getting their rigs in for that first afternoon, and the fish, without a doubt, go on the defensive. So a little change, a little freshen up of hook bait, because I have been told that certainly through last week, this swim in particular did a lot of bites later on in the afternoon, sort of late morning into the afternoon. So I'm getting ready for that period so that I know that everything is going to be sat absolutely perfect. So I'll get this one out, a few spots of bait, wait for the carp.
Bite number 2, and we're getting a little bit of consistency now, so put that lovely mirror back,
Put a further 3 spoms out there, the rod back out there on the same hook bait, little squid quad with a little bit of IB corn just to balance it off. We've got our second bite, and this is what it's all about now. We're sort of getting a nice bit of action. Hopefully, this will set things up for the day lovely. There she comes. All the way to the next wheel. Fish number 2. What a result, and what a morning's fishing as well. You know, I wouldn't say I was worried not catching last night. The bailiff did say it's all about the days, and I've really got to make today count. So get this fish photographed and weighed. Here we go, bite number 2. The bait consistency is definitely paying off. The fish are coming. I'm sure it won't be long for one of them Road Lakes monsters graces my net.
After that fish went back, the action quietened off, and in no time at all, it was ready for dinner. On the Road Lake, dinner is served at 5 o'clock over on the main lodge, giving me the perfect chance to catch up with the other anglers, see how they're getting on, and have a nice chat over a nice bit of meat pie. Just got back from a lovely bit of dinner, but before I did leave, I introduced a further 20 spoms, same mix, the chopped link, the hemp and the maize, and I clipped the rods up after I brought them in. We've got fresh rigs on, we've got fresh hook baits, so we're all ready to go. Get back out there straight away and hopefully catch some more carp. It's looking really good. There's a few showing, there's a few bubbles on the spot. Let's get them out there. It was only a few hours into dark when I decided to introduce a little bit more bait. This clearly made a massive difference because it didn't take long and my left hand rod was away with my first night bite. Before I even had time to deal with the first fish and get my rod back out, the right hand rod was away and this one felt much better fish. 2 become 4. Well, they're slowly getting bigger. Fish number 4. Like I mentioned, a night bite. I did introduce a little bit more bait on dark. There was a lot of fish showing. I didn't get a bite after dinner. I just thought, you know what, maybe a little bit of bait could get him onto the spot, and it's paid off. I had another little column with it, probably about 13, 14 pound. And this nice scaly fish has arrived as well. There's plenty of fish showing out there. So now it's about repeating the process, getting them rods back out there so they're bang on the money. And I'm gonna probably put in another 3 or 4 spoms as well. So I've got a busy hour or so ahead of me. But when you're catching lovely carp like this, you really don't care.
It was another quiet night in my swim, but it's not time to lose my head and start changing things. I just need to stick to the game plan and be patient as there's plenty of time left.
Well, after them 2 bites last night, nothing else has really happened, but yesterday morning there's key times I need to concentrate on now. So at 10 o'clock yesterday morning I got my first bite. So for me, that's now the sort of bite time, you know. So I've baited this morning well before that time. I got up at first light, introduced 30 spoms, reeled the rods in and went for a quick shower and a freshen up. I'm now ready to get these rods back out there well before the bite time. So it's really important that when you are catching fish for the first couple of days, you know, you're taking note in your mind or writing down on a bit of paper so you can get your baited spot prepped and ready well before they come onto the areas. So fingers crossed, we're out there, we've got fresh rigs on, we've got fresh hook baits on, we've got a nice bit of bait out there. The weather's looking really good for it today, the wind's in our favour. Fingers crossed for a few more bites. Finally, we're back into the action. It's been a very, very slow morning.
The conditions, they look absolutely prime for it, but the fish have had other ideas, and I made a little change which I believe has made a big difference. Now, the fish were showing, albeit a little bit behind me, so I got my little halved links that I've been chopping up and introducing and crumbed them up, added plenty of smart liquid, a little handful of hemp and maize, and spotted 2 spoms every 15 minutes just to see if I can get these fish to drop down onto the bait. It's worked. It has worked, and very quickly as well. I think I've done it, that's my 3rd time, so probably over a 45-minute period, 9 spoms, and we got our reaction. Happy days. It was just a small one, but all positive signs with hopefully a few hours before dinner. After slipping him back, 2 more quickly ended up in my net, including this really nice common. Yeah, well, sweet, in the net. Oh. Well, after a frustrating morning, ringing that dinner bell has once again got us out of trouble. So if you ever find yourself in a situation where they're out there, they're boshing, you know, a subtle little change can get extra fish in the net.
Well, been a bit slow for me so far.
They've been out there and all, haven't they, just to the left.
They have.
They sit in that no man's land.
Well, it's weird you said that, because I'm fishing more or less straight out, slightly left, but I've seen a couple today further round, so I've baited another spot, but I'm not fishing there tonight. I have moved into Basilius.
I heard you on the move.
Yes. Well, I baited it for 2 days. I went in, from where, if you stand at the front of my swim, because you can hear properly down, and last night I definitely heard a few crashing, so they've had a bit of free food.
A bit of free room as well. I think that's a major factor, is that you give fish on a busy lake a little bit of free movement. They're going to live down here for a couple of days.
And historically, it sort of works perfectly, because historically, Shingles does them in the day. And Basilius does them at night, so I'm literally going to flip between the 2.
Fair play.
What's that with you? You had a little bit of a flurry?
Today was a flurry. It's been, do you know what? It's been difficult to string anything together. You know, you sort of get 2 bites, then it goes quiet again for a few hours, and then you get 2 bites. But this afternoon, I had 3. I've changed things a little bit. Whether that's made a difference, I think they've just come onto my bait now. I think it just takes a couple of days of being consistent, and you start getting the numbers.
Yeah, you could really build. Well, it could happen. It goes 1 or 2 ways. You either really build a hit, or they can drift off.
I'm loving it, mate. You know, there've been small ones. I like playing that numbers game.
Yeah,
it's fun because you know you never know what they're going to be, a 30 pounder or a 30 kilo.
Well, the benefit you've got is I've fished a spot for a couple of days. I've kept the bait going in, and nothing's really happened. You know your food's getting eaten, so you know when to top up. You know when to put another bit of a hit in. I've got to play the waiting game, flip between the 2 a little bit. But look,
it's so rewarding when it happens, mate,
exactly.
for you. You know, a big 50 pounder after hard work.
Oh, cheers to that. Let's have a dessert.
Let's have a cheers to that, shall we? Yes. Good luck tonight, mate.
And you. Cheers.
Over in Basilius, it was time to implement what I had been planning by putting all 3 rigs into the baited zone. If I did get a bite, my plan was not to recast, but instead to drop it onto a shorter spot that I've also been baiting, so as not to risk disturbing any feeding fish on the original area and potentially ruining the chance of another bite. Well, that's the theory anyway.
Well, we're putting the plan into action. First night over in Basilius, they've all gone out lovely. A little bit of bait out there, not quite as much, because I want to try and get a bite now. See what the night brings.
Middle of the night seems to be a common theme at the minute. It seems to be their bite time. Not that I'm complaining, it's nice to be back into the action again. Pulling my arm off this one. That's much better, that is. Here she comes. Nice big set of scales on its shoulder. They're the ones you'll want. Gotcha. We've got you, girl. That's a lovely fish, that one. That is a proper one. Get in there. Buzzing for that.
Well, it's nice to finally get amongst some of the better fish. This one here, aptly named the Sergeant, potentially its first time over 40 pounds, coming in at 40 pounds and 4 ounces. Well, the action is definitely heating up, and this gives us a perfect opportunity to have a look at the rigs that have been catching these lovely carp. The rig I'm using this session is a variation of a slip D rig and a multi-rig. A very easy rig to tie because basically it's just 2 loop knots at either end of your hook link material. And like I mentioned, I'm using as much as the Basix range of terminal tackle during this session as possible. To construct this rig, take around 10 inches of the 18-pound coated braid and peel back around 4 inches to reveal the nice soft inner part of the braid itself. Then perform a nice figure of 8 loop knot. You want this loop knot around about 1.5 inches, just enough so the size 4 hook will pass this loop with ease. At the other end, slip on an anti-tangle sleeve and then perform another smaller figure of 8 loop knot. This one only needs to be small. You want it sitting nice and neat within the anti-tangle sleeve. Once this is all done, you can cut off a small section of medium size shrink tubing. You only need about probably 6 to 7 mil is enough for this rig. Once this is on your hook link material, then you can pass the hook itself going through the front of the eye and coming out of the back. Once your hook is on the material itself, then you can then get a small micro hook ring swivel and place this on to the loop section. I'm then passing my size 4 hook through the loop knot, making it sort of lassoed as such onto the hook. I then bring my little bit of shrink tubing down and pass this over the eye all the way, so I'm only actually got a very, very small section of shrink tubing hanging out of the eye itself. Now the main purpose for this small bit of shrink tubing is not to make the rig any more effective, but to hold the hook and the slip D section in place so my bait doesn't slip back up towards the eye on the cast. Once the rig is constructed, then we've got to take it over to the kettle and make sure everything is steamed down so that slip D section can't move, and also give the rig a little steam so it's lovely and straight. Then on to the hook bait itself. Now the hook bait I've been using during the session, which has been catching me all these fish, is a combination of a spicy squid infused quad hook bait with a little bit of fake IB corn, the pop-up version, just so I get a little bit of buoyancy from the bait, but not too much. I want that quad hook bait, the bottom of it, right close to the deck, not wafting up too much. The bottom out there is very, very clear. I don't need to have my hook bait too far in the air. So that's my hook bait, and then moving on to the leg clip itself. Now, as I mentioned, I'm using the Basix range, and this is the Basix range Action Pack leg clip. Pretty much what it says in the tin. A leg clip system. Now I'm using around about 10 inches of the tubing itself, threading this onto my 15-pound Basix mainline, then a little tail rubber, then my leg clip, and then this is all going on to a size 8 quick change swivel. Once the rig is all together and nice and neat, I then get a little bit of putty and mould that round the top of the tubing itself, just to make sure that that tubing is absolutely nailed to the deck itself. And then to finish it all off, I've got a little flying back lead. Now I love these flying back leads. It's for me, having, you know, the last 10 or 15 foot of my main line nailed to the ground, I honestly think it makes a massive difference getting the most out of your swim. You know, if you've got fish swimming around, getting fed, not knowing they're getting fished for, you will catch more fish throughout the session. So that back lead plays an absolute massive part in my angling, and it's definitely helping me catch a few more extra fish this session, I'm sure.
Well, there we go, the rods are out and ready for another night, and before it gets too dark, I'm just going to give you a little idea and a little explanation about why I use certain items of hardware. So to start with, I'm going to go with the alarm and bobbin combination. So the bite alarm is a Delkim TXID, something that I've used for a number of years, and when you use that in conjunction with a stow bobbin, because the line on the stow is actually pinched into position, quite literally, it registers everything. Sometimes on a ball style clip, the line could move, the bobbin can slip down, and you might not get quite as many beeps to tell you exactly what's going on out there. So for me, it's the ultimate combination. And showing the line pinched into position leads me nicely onto the main line that I'm using. On the Road Lake, you have to use a minimum of 040, so I've chosen to use the long chuck in 20-pound breaking strain. Now, on a lake like this, there are still a few unseen snags, so that extra diameter is what's going to give you the best chance of landing the fish should you find an unknown snag. But it's the best thing about it is the low stretch. It makes casting long ranges very easy. So even though it's 20-pound breaking strain, I'm fishing at 28.5 wraps all the way to the far margin, and I've got to be honest, I'm doing it with ease. The line is helping to make that job easy. And when you are fishing at those long ranges, it's important to have an idea of the lake bed that you're dropping onto. And even at that range, I'm using a 4¼ ounce lead. I can still feel the lead down nicely. I still know I'm fishing on the spot, and I'm hoping that tonight we're going to get off the mark.
Over in my swim, there was a change to the routine with my first bite before dark. Well, we've not been long back from dinner. I got the rods back out, but one thing I did do was bait up before dinner. I've been struggling to get bites after dinner, so I really put the bait in. Got the rods back out, and I tell you what, I've hooked 9 fish now, and this one feels a lot heavier and a lot slower. And the bite itself, it didn't rip off. The bobbin just pulled up tight. What have we got here? This fish is in full control. I'd rather it didn't go down that margin. Please, girl, don't go down there. I do not know what's down there. Whoa, these lunges are fierce. Right, girl, you're coming up now. Oh yeah. Big old mirror just popped up then. Oh yeah. It's moving some serious water and all. Well, we've worked hard so far this session. We've been consistent, we've kept the bait going in, we've kept the fresh rigs going out, sharp hooks, and now we are going to get our reward. Come on girl, another 2 foot. Get in the back of my net please. Yes, get in there. That is what we come for. Big old French babies. Tell you what, I am over the moon. Get in there. Well, what a mega day. A 40-pounder this morning and now one just over 46 pounds. I think it's fair to say the big ones have arrived. Got to keep that bait going in now and really make the most of the remainder of this session. Well, what a lovely start to the evening. I've heard some absolute monsters out there tonight. There are plenty more fish, a lot bigger than this one out there. I am keen to get the rods back out. Thank you very much, girl. It wasn't long before I was in again with 3 fish coming in quick succession, topped off by this lovely 35-pound common.
Now it's time to take a little look at the rods that I've been using for this session, and they are the new Korda Koach Platinums. They are the first rods to be solely developed by Korda using the highest level of carbon technology and development available in the UK. And the finished product is not only something we're incredibly proud of, but we believe we've created a set of rods that are perfect for any fishing situation you'll be faced with in both the UK and across Europe. The rods have been developed using a super tensile, high-grade Japanese carbon
they have a fast taper and an incredibly quick recovery time. And what that means is when you are trying to cast longer distances, you're going to cut down on the friction and hit those ranges with absolute ease. Now that's some of the technical information that makes the rods as good as they are and the reasons behind it, but as carp anglers, it's important what they look like too. So we've gone with a lovely matte black finish. You've got lightweight stainless guides throughout, and in all of the models available, they range from a 50mm butt ring up to a 16mm tip ring. And finishing off the rod down at the butt section, we've gone with Japanese shrink wrap with a flared end, and you've got nice stainless fittings either side of a Fuji reel seat with a stainless butt cap to finish it off too. For this trip, I'm using what have very quickly become my go-to set of rods, and that is the 12-foot, 3.5 pound model. And I'm as happy fishing at 6 wraps with a light lead as I am fishing, as I was in the previous swim, at 28.5 wraps with a solid bag. They pretty much cover all of my fishing, but don't worry if that set sounds a bit too heavy for you. There is a 3 pound model available too, or if you do a lot of long range fishing, then there are distance models available in both 12-foot 6 and 13-foot. And then to finish the range off nicely, there's a 12-foot spod rod. And I've been using that a hell of a lot, and just recently was fishing for a week at 140 yards using a midi-X spom, and it coped absolutely perfectly. So there you go, you've heard it all from me. I've gone through just about everything you need to know, but to have a look for yourself, get down to your local tackle shop and let me know what you think.
In my swim, it was more about action than talking, and my 3 pound Kaizens were making it all very easy, hitting the clip consistently and accurately at 21 wraps, along with taming these very powerful Gigantica Carp.
And as you can see, I've got a nice bend in my rod, keeping firm contact on the fish at all times. Obviously we're a barbless hook venue here, so no sudden movements, just nice and slow. Make sure your drag's set lovely, so if they do charge off, which they do in here, they're full of beans, extremely powerful carp, your clutch can take any of them sudden jolts. You know, when I first hook into the fish, I tend to keep my rod nice and low, which keeps the fish low in the water also, keeps them sort of moving around too much. They're a bit more of a dog on a lead like them, they tend to come straight in, and then you get most of the fight under the rod tip. These rods are lovely in 3 pound because they really do absorb all them big heavy lunges that the carp do under the rod tip. Now I've got my rods fairly high, that way I can sort of nip one, pearl one, if and when needed.
What I mean by that, it allows me to pass the rod underneath my other rods to try and eliminate the fish picking up one of my other lines.
Oh, yes! Well, after a very quiet night, it's nice to be back in the action again with a lovely common. This one going 40 pounds and 13 ounces. I'm gonna get this one back, keep that bait going in, and hopefully we can pick up a few more.
Keeping the spot topped up on a regular basis kept the bites coming. I was having so much fun playing the numbers game, and surely it wouldn't be long before a monster turns up.
Come on, girl, all the way over the net. Yes. Well, what a lovely old gnarly common. You never know what you're gonna catch in the Road Lake. There could be big long uns, or like this one here, a big old dumpy one. This one going 36 pounds and 4 ounces. As anglers, fish care should be our main priority, and there's a few things that we can all do to make sure that the fish goes back into the water in tip-top condition. First things first, make sure everything is prepped on the bank. You want plenty of cold water. Make sure your carp care is to hand, you've got your scales, you've got your camera kit. You don't want to be rushing around once the fish is on the bank. Make sure you're prepared. When possible, always remove the hook from the fish in the water. I honestly believe that the majority of mouth damage occurs when we transfer the fish from the water to the mat and the hook is still in the fish. By removing the hook, we're also removing the rod from the situation, which means we can have 2 hands on the sling when bringing the fish from the water to the mat. We can now break the net down and transfer both fish and the net into the retainer. Now simply roll the retainer down and make sure all the fins are tight against the fish's body before removing the fish from the water. If you're on your own, make sure you've got a clear path from the water to the mat. You don't want any rods in the way, buckets in the way, shoes in your way. Make sure you've got a clear path. If you feel like you're going to struggle, call in reinforcements, ask your neighbour next door, or if in doubt, ring the bailiff or the fishery staff, and I'm sure they'll be on hand to help. Make sure your waiting mat has plenty of water on it, especially on a warm, sunny day. We can now remove the net from the situation, but make sure you do this from head to tail, so you are with the scales rather than against the scales. Remember to keep the fish wet at all times and remove any watches or jewellery that could damage the fish when you eventually come to pick it up for photographs. Now, when it comes to weighing the fish, make sure everything is zeroed in, and if you need any additional help, use a T-bar or a weigh crook. Now it's time to get them mega trophy shots, but constantly monitor the fish and apply water when needed. Now you've got your shots, it's now time to do a really important thing, and that is check the entire fish for any sores, any lesions, or any hook damage that has potentially happened during the fight. Firstly, dab the wound down with a dry towel, then apply some propolis, and then seal the wound with a little bit of water. Once you're all done, now it's time to get the fish safely back to the water. So back in the retainer, make sure it's fully zipped up, checking the fins once again before making that walk back from the mat to the lake. Now the fish is safely back in the water. It's had a long ordeal, being hooked, being on the bank. Make sure that fish is ready to go off its own accord.
Just before dinner, I managed 2 more fish. The perfect way to build up an appetite.
Ah, what a mad hour. Yes!
After 2 fishless nights in Bacheliers, I was back in Shingles and it was time for a little change.
Now, I know I've been saying, and the bailiffs say as well, to stick to your spots and it will come good, and I am a firm believer in that. However, I'm also a big believer in letting the fish do the talking, and for the last 2 afternoons, they've been fizzing up and down this channel, showing as well, and I've seen literally nothing over my baited spot out in the main zone, if you like. So if I was fishing anywhere, wherever there's fish activity is where I'd want to be. Location is always rule number 1. So what I've decided to do, I'm going to stay in Shingles tonight. I've done 2 sort of overnighters, if you like, in Bacheliers, and it hasn't paid off. I felt like the first night it should have done. I think where I'd rested it for a couple of days, the fish definitely turned up en masse, and I unfortunately didn't get the bite. I went back in there for a second night, and they didn't turn up. So whether that's because I'd been fishing in there, my lines were in, I don't know the reason. But I'm going to go back. I'm going to stay in here for the night tonight. I'm fishing a new spot where I've seen constant fish activity. I'm still going to bait the far margin up in Bacheliers. I'm still going to keep the bait going in there. And there's nothing to say that they're not going to venture back up there once there's no lines in for 24 or maybe even 48 hours. Whatever situation you're faced with, it was always going to be tough coming late out in the draw, but your eyes will always tell you the most things, and that is where I've seen the activity. That is what I'm going to commit 2 rods out there.
So when it comes to bait, I've decided to make a little change and only put hemp and maize onto the new spot, as sometimes at this time of year the fish can get a little wary of big beds of boilie.
Well, this has not been a common sight this trip, has it? But here we are in the middle of the night with a fish on, and it's come from that new spot. So the message I said yesterday, let your eyes do all the work for you, has come true. For 2 days I'd seen fish show in that area. I'd seen them bubbling up and fizzing. So I opted to come off the main spot in this swim and try somewhere different, and it's worked. Feels good to be playing one, that's for sure. A lot of rigs that we use in carp fishing today often incorporates a size 4 hook, but when I use solid bags, I use little size 6 cranks as much as possible, so you can't put too much pressure on the fish. You've just got to take your time. I've got lovely open water in front of me, so it's just a case of letting the fight play out. Don't put too much pressure on it. You don't want to risk pulling the hook out. It's you get this far into a trip and you've not caught a fish, and I know all you want to do is get it into the net, but it's important you take your time. And before you know it, hopefully it'll be in the folds of the net. It's not a bad fish. Come on. Oh, it flicked off its fin. Come on. Come on. Come on. Yes! Yes! That feeling of landing a carp when it has without doubt been one of the trickiest trips I've had for a long time. That feeling will never, ever get old. Get in. Yes. That is the beauty of being prepared. A load of solid bags ready to go means I can get it wrapped up, quick injection of goo, and it's back on the spot inside 5 minutes. Like I said, getting that rod back out quickly can turn one bite into two. It's the same rod that's gone again. No more bait was put out because I felt there would still be enough. And whilst this one doesn't feel quite as big as the first one, it's another bite. It's all coming good. Get in that net. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Well, how about that for a scale perfect common? Just over £32, £32 and 2 ounces to be precise. And it come to a recast, getting that solid bag back into position as quickly as possible. They are so effective at this sort of fishing. You can have a load tied up, ready to go. As soon as it lands, you know it's fishing. You've got a perfect little pile of bait amongst your freebies. And that is the result. And as happy as I am to have landed this, he was the second of the night. I'm going to get the first one out in a minute, and trust me, he's a bit bigger than this one. That is a big old carp. I've said the whole way through the importance of sticking with your game plan, staying solid with your baiting approach, your rigs, and when it all comes good, it done half feel good. I was never ever going to catch the most fish this week. That was not going to happen, but I believed that not only was a big one on the cards, but that I would get bites. And there we go, 46 pound. The proof in the pudding is in the eating. The whole trip so far, I've used the same 2 rigs. I've used the spinner rig and the solid bag. Now, I'm not going to show you how to tie a spinner rig because it's been done many, many times before. If you did want to watch and get some more information though, a couple of years ago, Dovey did a section focused solely on that rig. So you can go back and find it and have a little look through that. The solid bag though, it's certainly gained in popularity, but there's a lot of people that still think they're awkward and fiddly to tie. But if you keep doing it, practice definitely makes perfect. The way I do it, I take about 8 inches of supernatural braid in 18 pound, usually in the weed green. I start off by tying a small hair loop, put on my chosen hook bait. In this case, it's a piece of fake maize. That's what I've been feeding quite a bit of. I do use small dumbbell wafters and small boilies as well. Really, that's one of those things that comes down to your preference. But in this instance, it's just a single piece of slow sinking fake maize. So my hook's going to stay buried in amongst the solid bag, and the hook bait will just work its way to the top. So as a carp comes in, you've just got that little sight bob for it. I then take a size 6 crank hook. In this situation, I'm using barbless hooks because rules dictate, and do a simple 5-turn knotless knot. I then measure the rig on my tackle box to make it 4.5 inches long, and it's finished off by a large figure of 8 loop, and that's quite an important part. Everything I do, I try to make as quick change as possible. So I attach that to my chosen leader by threading the loop through the swivel and then passing the hook and hook bait back through that large loop and pulling down tight. The leader I'm using in this situation is a 30 centimetre clear drop-off version. So it's got a ring swivel at the end, 30 centimetres a leader, and you simply then add a tail rubber to it. So once you've got your rig in position, I take a 3.5 ounce square pair inline lead. I push the swivel into the bottom, the leader goes over the top, and then you pull the tail rubber down, that sits over the top of the stem on the lead, and basically what happens is when a carp picks your rig up, it pulls from one way, you pull from the other, everything pulls tight, the leader pings off, and the lead drops to the bottom. When it comes to tying the solid bag, there's a few different ways of doing it, but my choice, I take a small solid bag, I put a small layer of pellet into the bottom, I put my hook and my hook bait down into the bottom corner, and again, just put another small layer of pellet over the top. I then simply drop the lead in the middle, start putting pellets in, and what you gradually do is work the lead up the bag, because then you're ensuring that your rig cannot tangle. It's getting held in place by the different sizes pellets that you're using until you get to the stage where the bag is about 3/4 full. You have a tail rubber just sticking out of the top. Tap the bag down, get it all nice and tight. It's important to use a mix that allows you to get as much of the air out of that bag as possible. So my choice, it's the mainline spod and PVA pellet. It's got pellets ranging from probably 1 mil up to 4 mil. And because you crush it all down, what you're left with is a real tight, compact parcel of bait. Once you're at that stage, I twist the top of the bag around the tail rubber. I take some 10 mil quick melt PVA tape, wrap it around the top 7 times, and simply tie off with a couple of granny knots. Trim that down, trim the sort of residue PVA at the top down as well, and you're almost finished. I then turn the bag upside down, I take the corners, pinch the corners, sort of swing and flick the bag by that end, lick the top, pull it all down, and then repeat that for the other side. And that parcel attraction is now ready to be fished however I want to, whether it's, as I've done a couple of times here, I've cast it at showers, I've cast it at fish that are bubbling along the bottom, and I'm fishing it over the top of my spotted area too. And the last thing I do before casting out is add a little bit of goo to the bag by simply inserting the spout into the top. You give it a little squeeze. You don't have to put too much in, but what you're ensuring is that that bit out in the middle of the bait, or whether it's fished as a single hook bait, is without doubt the most attractive thing in that area, and that added injection of goo can just help bring the fish directly onto the spot. The goo is really, it's one of your choice. It's one that you have confidence in. I like to play around with a few because sometimes you can stumble across the perfect one for the situation you're in. So far this trip I've tried isotonic, golden honey, white squid, banoffee, and hopefully you stumble across one that just gets you a bite that little bit quicker, and that becomes your go-to for a bit. So there you go, solid bags, spinners, double confidence.
As we went into the last full day and night, it was all about pressing the repeat button and enjoying the time we had left. You never know, sometimes the fish of your dreams could show up on the very last night and send you home with an even bigger smile than you already have.
When you find the winning formula and unlock the code, it's simply a case of press and repeat. So I put another 5 kilo of hemp and maize back onto the spot, hoping that the fish would be back for another feed and give me some more action before I packed away in the morning.
In you go. Get in there.
I had a couple of smaller fish just before it got light, but before I had a chance to look at them, my other rod was away, and this fish felt different from the very start.
Well, it's been a pretty hectic early morning. Just had a really weird bite on this rod. The bobbin just sort of pulled up to the top and slowly settled back down. I still picked it up and there's a fish on. And it just automatically feels a bit heavier. Oh, that's pretty decent, that. Get off of there. That is not a bad fish. Get in! Yes! That is another good one. Yes! That is a big carp. Come and have a look. Yeah, boy!
With this monster in the net, the right thing to do was slip the smaller ones back with a quick kiss and concentrate on this beast of a fish.
Oh my days! That is a massive, massive carp. That, hang on, that's not even off the mat. That is a fraction over 65 pounds. That is 65 and a quarter. You've been eating. Get in! Now from the get-go, it was obvious that Burgess and I were going to have very different trips. With Rob having first choice, he chose to go in Turtle's Corner, which historically, it's a swim that holds a lot of carp, but you still got to catch them. Rob has angled his socks off in there and had over 20 fish, which by any lake standards is good going. Now me coming out last, I had to work hard but in a different way. I've had to flip between swims, making sure that even when I'm fishing one, I'm baiting the other. And the thought process behind that is that the fish move in when there's no lines in the water, they get confident in feeding on your baits. When you do drop in and flick your rigs out, they turn up and you hopefully get some quick bites. Well, I was confident, but when you get 4 nights into a trip, that's when your head can go and you start to question what's going on. But I stayed strong with what I believed. I kept angling the way that I've caught fish out of this lake historically. And I'm very pleased to say that not only has it come good, but it's come good with one of the very biggest carp in the lake. Are you ready for this? I know I've teased you with it. Are you ready to see a 65 and a quarter mirror carp known as two-tone? Would you have a look at that? 65 and a quarter, and proof that with hard angling and a bad draw, you can still make it happen. So take from this what you want. Take inspiration, take motivation. Next time you come out to France and you come out late in the draw, don't give up, because with solid angling and hard work, it only takes one bite and it becomes a trip of a lifetime. Get in. Mwah. Mwah. Get in! What a day!